the first thing you need to do is ask yourself, could I have sold my property for that property valuation on June 30th of 2022? If the answer is yes, you don't need to bother with an appeal. There's really no point, okay? Because that is what the assessor's job is to determine your likely market property value as of June 30th, 2022, based on comps that sold from July 1st of 2020 to June 30th of 2022, okay? So when you're looking at the stuff that sold last month and you're like, oh my gosh, my house isn't worth that, depending on what's happened in the market in the neighborhood, don't take that to the assessor and say, hey, this just sold like 2 weeks ago and my house isn't worth as much as that one. They can't look at it because it didn't sell within that prescribed valuation period, okay? So we got to work together, because fighting people that determine this is not going to help you. So help them understand, okay? If you ask yourself in that question, the answer is like, yep, I could have sold my house for that. Don't bother filing an appeal. That's my recommendation, okay? If the answer is, I don't know, but I don't really think so, reach out to your realtor. That's what we do, is help people understand what their likely market property value is, okay? We don't have to go back in time quite as often. We do have to time value adjust for some things, and we're going to talk about that process, and that's where a lot of the questions are going to come in. But we can help you and at least give you an idea of, hey, we can pull some comps that sold in the valuation period, which is probably what the tax assessor is going to look at, and say, I don't think so. Now, the other things the tax assessor don't know are what your house looks like. So we'll talk about all the things that you can help the assessor if you're going to appeal, okay? But if you're not sure, reach out to your local trusted realtor, okay? If you don't have one, ask for recommendations. If you're in the South Denver metro area, I would love to be that person for you and that reference for you, okay? So as I get these requests, I'm triaging them because they do take me a lot of time and a lot of work to go in and pull this information, okay? But I want to help you with this stuff, and I want to help you understand, one, how these property valuations are calculated, and two, to make sure that the assessor has all the information they need to do a proper assessment of the property, okay? So that's whether or not you should even file an appeal. If the answer is like, hell no, no way, that is so much more than I ever could have sold my property for, then yes, file an appeal. Your deadline to file an appeal is June 8th. That is coming up very, very quickly, okay? So please don't miss that deadline. Please, you can go online and file an appeal, okay? If you just want to make sure that you can at least check that box. So let's say you do want to file an appeal. What are 3 things, and I'm looking down at my notes so I stay on track for y'all. What are the 3 things that you can provide the assessor that will really, really help them do their job, okay? One is going to be comps within the valuation period. When agents or assessors or anybody are talking about comps, we are talking about sold market comparables, usually sold, depends on the context. But when we say comps, we mean comparables, which means comparable properties to your property. We usually talk about the subject property, which is the one in question, and all of the comps, which are all the comparables, okay? The assessor can only look at comparables within that time frame. Now, we're going to talk about time value adjustments more and which ones are better to choose, okay? But the more recent you can get to June 30th, 2022, and the few months prior to that, immediately prior to that, are usually going to be your best comparables, because the biggest adjustment is a time value adjustment, okay? And that is what is the most hard to nail down and has the most opportunity to impact your property significantly. So if we can choose comps that sold in, March, April, May, June of 2022, or March, April, May, and June of 2022, that would be ideal. So if you're in a newer suburban area that has, hey, same floor plan, same square footage, they just have a little bit different color paint on the outside and different finishes in the inside, great. Those are kind of a best case scenario. Condos, townhomes, where you have a lot of very similar properties, you have a lot of opportunity for comparable properties. The more custom and the more unique your property is, not just the inside, but the exterior, land, building, layout, location, all that kind of stuff, the harder it is to pull appropriate comps, because there's more adjustments to do, which means more discretionary value changes. So pulling comps that are as close as possible to that June timeframe. Now, if there were properties that are under contract on that June 30th date, let's say they didn't close until first, second, third week of July, but they got under contract in June, a lot of times the assessors can consider those as well. Because if you think about it, the contract price was determined when the property went under contract, Okay, so maybe there's your next door neighbor's house sold, and that is the best comparable, but the sold date is outside of June. They may have missed that. Okay, you can pull that information a lot of times and say, hey, I know this didn't sell, but it was pending sale on June 30th, which shows that the contract price was the market value in that June timeframe. Okay, so a lot of times you can pull those in and use those for reference as well. Or let's say your property was actually listed for sale in that June timeframe and it didn't sell, or you know, it was listed for sale, but it sold outside of the window. You might have said, you know, hey, or I guess this is if it didn't sell, because if it sold, you don't have to pay, you're not getting your property tax valuation. But let's say you listed your property in June and it didn't sell and you took it off the market. Now you got your property tax valuation. That is also information that says, I tried to market and sell my property for XYZ in June and it did not sell for that. So that's not a fair market valuation, or anything above it is not a fair market valuation. Okay? So those are extra things that you can provide the assessor along with, you know, regarding which comps you're choosing. Okay? So sold comparables within the time frame, ideally closer to June of 2022, as well as any potentially pending comparables that are really good and really close to your property and really similar, or active listings that did not sell. Okay? So that's the first thing that you can help them with. The second thing, the time value adjustment. So, sorry, it's a Saturday, so I'm having to pause because I'm keep getting text and calls and everything for business. So the time value adjustment is another thing that you may want to provide with your comps that you choose, especially if your comps are a year old, 2 years old, you know, towards the beginning, towards the 2020 timeframe, that end of 2020, early 2021, even end of 2021, because that's also what the county has to do. So when you look at that TASP, that time adjusted sales price, what they have to do is they have to time adjust all of those sold comparables. So let's say the property sold in January of 2022. They have to bring that price forward and adjust it as if it had sold on June 30th of 2022. Because of the rapid market appreciation in that 2-year period, that is what is increasing a lot of the comparable valuations and a lot of the property valuations, okay? And that's not wrong. Our market had crazy high appreciation in that 2-year period, record appreciation for the area. And so that's what's causing a lot of the confusion. So understanding that you probably, if you can time value adjust any older comparables, that will also show the assessor, hey, there's a time value adjustment. Yes, I realize this comp sold back in June, but here's a time value adjustment. Now, my beef with this is the methodology for the time value adjustment. Realtors do it some ways, appraisers do it some ways. The county assessors have, I think, 4 different ways that they can choose from based on the Colorado law, or some combination thereof. So if you really want to get nitty gritty, because I like to do that, go to your county assessor's website, and some of them will have an explanation worksheet on the methodology that they use for the time adjusted sales price calculation. So they won't tell you exactly how to do it, but they will tell you the methodology they used. So if you want to get down in the weeds to do that, can you do that? Sure. Should that help them? Absolutely. What most people are going to do are a little bit simpler version of a time value adjustment, which is not as detailed and reflective given the exact sold date, but it is directionally correct. Okay? Depending on the exact level of detail, and like I said, this is not, yes, it's a science based on the calculations, but there's a lot of discretionary adjustment. Okay? So they're doing the best they can given how many properties they have to adjust, and they try to do it the most fair way they can. So doing the time adjusted sales price based on geographical areas as well. Because what they don't want to do is say, oh, this one neighborhood went up 60%. You're 4.5 miles away, but we're just going to slap that on yours too. Because that's not fair and reasonable to those people. So they do the best that they can with that. But providing some sort of time value adjustment if your comps sold further away from that June timeframe. Within a month or two, there's obviously not going to be a significant of adjustment. So if you want to do that, you can. You can ask your agent for that. A lot of agents, that's what starts to take us a lot of time. So some agents will give you that information and some won't. It starts to get really, really, really tough depending on the methodology that we use, and it takes a lot of time and work to work up those numbers. But providing that for older sold comparables that are still within that valuation range will also help the assessor, okay? The third thing that is probably the easiest thing to do, take pictures of your house. Because let's say your house hasn't sold in 30 years, okay? let's say you happen to have not updated your house significantly in that 30 years, but most of the homes in the neighborhood that have sold have been. Either they've been, new flooring, new carpet, new counters, new HVAC, new roof, new windows, all of these things that people spend money on updating and improving their property. If your house is all original 1979 and hasn't been touched, and you got a cedar shake shingle roof, which hopefully didn't get demolished by the hail we just had, and you've still got some 1990s carpet and some Formica counters that are, 30 or 40 years old or whatever, and you've just taken immaculate care of your property, but it is not cosmetically updated, that is going to significantly change the potential value of your home, right? The market value, likely market value of your property. So if you have an older home in the neighborhood, or you have not done significant updates or something like that compared to a lot of those sold comparables and their market value, that will significantly help the assessor understand, like, oh, yeah, this house is not like all those sold comparables. Now, if your comparables are older in original condition and yours is too, then probably don't have a lot of room to dispute that, right? Unless you have issues and say, I couldn't have sold my house for some extenuating circumstance. I have structure issues and the other houses don't. I don't have, I have the tiniest house out of all of these, or the tiniest lot, or something else, some other factor that isn't adjusted for. Different counties get to determine their variables that they adjust valuations by, like bedroom, bathroom size, decks, lot size, all those kinds of things. But helping the assessor understand, my house is different and this is why, okay? That will significantly help them. A lot of times they don't go looking on Zillow, okay? They're not gonna go to unofficial sources for that type of information and go hunting. They're gonna say, hey, we have a lot of houses to evaluate. This is the methodology that we're gonna use. These are the sold comparables in the time frame that are similar to that property based on our understanding of the factors and the variables that we have information for. So, but if your house is different and they don't know, that's what the appeal process is for, okay? So hopefully that gives you a little bit better understanding as far as, one, whether you should even file appeal, two, the comps in the valuation period that can be used to help determine the property valuation. So don't pull stuff from August, September, October, November of 2022 when the market adjusted and values went down and everyone's like, oh, I just got this valuation for something I never could sell my house for. Okay, well, they are restricted on what they can look at. So stay within the valuation period, ideally within June of 2022 or the few months prior, right? The closer to that date, the better, the less time value adjustment we have to make. It also talks doing some sort of time value adjustment if you choose to do that, or you ask your realtor to help with that, especially if you have comps that sold in 2020 and 2021 that you're trying to use as justification. And then also pictures of your home, or why your home is different, why your home is not worth what they said it was worth, and how you can help the assessor with that. So if this was helpful, if you got a tidbit, you're like, man, I didn't know that. That's a good point. Please hit the like button. That will help other people find this. I would greatly appreciate that. You can certainly subscribe to my channel. I love nitty gritty stuff. I love knowledge broker stuff. I try to give really valuable content to help you make educated decisions, okay? If you're looking to buy or sell in South Metro Denver area, obviously reach out to me. I would love the opportunity for an interview. And if you need an agent in another area, reach out to me. I'm picky on who I refer and they know what they're doing. So happy to make some recommendations there. So anyway, thanks so much for the time. Best of luck with the appeal and have a great day.